home and at play. So whether you're using the 2 curbside bin system and separating or the all-in-one roll cart system, keep recycling. Brought to you by Charleston County Environmental Management.
Welcome back to our program. We're talking about right-of-way and how the county and other government entities, the state of South Carolina and so on, how they go about getting enough land to build the road, for an example, to the exact specifications that are provided by the designer. The person that puts the road together, he or she has done all the measurements and the like, and then we need somebody to talk with the public, to negotiate with the public, so that we're able to get that land and fulfill that project. The question is, are there times when you just can't fulfill the project, holding up the project because the people that are involved where the land has to be acquired just won't cooperate? And that doesn't have to be just a family, it could be a business.
Well, projects are typically not going to be held up because the county and the states have the power of eminent domain condemnation, so they can condemn and acquire the property in order to allow the projects to move on. There are times, though, when from a timing standpoint, the project may not go to construction as quickly as we would like, simply because we're trying to work with those owners, give them enough time for them to make informed decisions in the right-of-way acquisition process.
Well, I'm also thinking about the various utilities. They've bought, or the county or the city or the state, they've bought that property a long time ago in some instances.
Well, we work with the utility companies as well. There's coordination that takes place through the project development process to ensure that those utilities are aware of what we're going to do. They have time to go secure their own new right-of-way if they need to, or if they're going to relocate back into public right-of-way, they have time to develop their plans in order to do that. One
curiosity for me has been, who owns that property? When a utilities company, I'm talking about gas, electric, telephone, whatever, well, not telephone anymore, that ages me, doesn't it?
Yes.
Thanks, Oscar. But what happens when that utility they've brought some property or bought the property, and nobody really knows or thinks about the fact that all of these lines are running right in front of their homes in some instances. I mean, are the people always aware that there's lines under that ground?
Not always.
Near their homes?
Not always, but in South Carolina we have something called PUPs, where if you're going to be digging, you make a phone call to a 1-800 number, and all the utilities will come out and locate their lines so that you don't go out there and dig up a gas line.
Yeah.
Or something along those.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good idea. I mean, if you want something very simple on how you can protect yourself in these things, then you have, and we did that when we built our home. Absolutely. We made sure that we went to the various utilities, and they gave us a map. Right. Because I love to garden, and I didn't want to dig up my line or a line for my utility, and so there was always some way to know what was under there. And I think that works for people.
It does. Like I said, they will come out and mark those lines for you. And in most cases, when you buy your property, you have a plat prepared. That surveyor typically will note the utility easements that affect the property.
Can you think of any situation that you've been in all the years? You told me 30-some years that you've been doing this work. Or more, because you're a lot older than that, and I understand that. But have you ever had a situation where it was just impossible to get your job done? I mean, you wanted to throw up your hands. Has there ever been one that hard?
No, not that I can remember. I find this job challenging. I don't see my job as trying to convince someone to sell the property. My job is to make sure they understand. I want them to understand what's going on. I don't care whether we resolve it between the two of us or whether they have to go to a judge and a jury to have that done.
As long as you get that property.
As long as we're going to...
Or the government or the entity that you're working for.
Gets the property that's necessary in order to complete the public improvement, then I've accomplished what I need to. And if they understand the process and the project, then we've done what we were supposed to.
Usually you get the cooperation that you need.
Well, yes. In probably 95% of the cases that we deal with, we have people who are very cooperative.
Is all of this more difficult when it comes to businesses? I'm talking about these huge businesses or just mom and pop grocery stores and restaurants, and that. Is it more difficult dealing with businesses?
No, businesses typically recognize the necessity for, widening roads and so forth. The biggest problem you have there is when you're dealing with out-of-state companies. Sometimes they're not very responsive. So those issues tend to add time to the process, whereas if you have somebody local that you can sit down with on a face-to-face basis, it's a whole lot easier to get the message across.
And where the money comes in, the purchase of the property, if that's the case, do you find that you're challenged on that at times, that in fact the owner feels that there should be more money involved than what's actually involved? And do they have to prove it, or do you have to prove it, or do you just do as you said before? We're going to get that property one way or the other.
It's a give and take situation. We are looking for information to support the position they take. We typically have an appraisal, or we've had an appraiser look at the property and provide us information as to what it's worth. So we are not just going to accept a number from an owner and just arbitrarily go forward with that. We are looking for them to provide some support for the position that they have taken, whether it be through another sale that they think we should have considered, or some information that we may have missed. There are some situations where people have underground sprinkler systems and that type of stuff. Well, if that's been missed, that's certainly something that we should take into consideration as a part of the process.
Is that then an independent appraisal? Would you say that?
We hire appraisers, yes. These folks work out in the community, and when you say independent, whoever hires the appraiser, that's who he works for. So completely independent, he's providing you his independent opinion of what the property is worth.
Should I, as a landowner, get my appraiser too? And
That's,
we have both?
that's entirely up to the owner. There's a cost associated with getting appraisals though, and that's why we get ours. We provide the landowner with a copy of the appraisal report, so he has the ability to review the appraisal that the county or the state or whoever's doing the right-of-way acquisition has had performed, so they could look at it, challenge portions of it, or whatever they need to do.
And I guess we ought to look at the fact that after all, you are working for us, for the public.
True.
For the residents and citizens of Charleston County.
Absolutely.
You can't forget that part.
That's why I'm not out there to try and convince them. I'm out there to provide them information and so that they can make informed decisions.
Oscar, thank you so very much for being a part of our program. We've gotten a lot out of it, I'm sure, and a lot of good advice. And now we know what happens when the county comes out or a government entity of any kind comes out and says, we're responsible for land acquisition, or we need to acquire this property for a project. You know how it's done and why it's done. And if you have questions, these folks are always available to you. I hope that you've enjoyed the program as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. This has been the Transportation Sales Tax Program, also known as Roadwise. I'm Cheryl Harleston. We'll see you the next time. For more information, visit us on tst.charlestoncounty.org. You can also follow us on Facebook and